became tombs, before pharaohs became gods. There was magic. In ancient Egypt, spells weren't superstition. They were power. Power to heal, to curse, to speak with the dead. And in the land of the Nile, even the mightiest kings feared those who could command the unseen. In this episode, we journey deep into the temples, tombs, and forbidden scrolls of ancient Egypt, a civilization where magic wasn't just belief, but law. We'll uncover how pharaohs used sorcery to protect their reign, how priests invoked gods through sacred rituals, and how ordinary people turned to amulets, spells, and curses to change their fate. From the spells carved inside the pyramids to the dreaded Book of the Dead, we'll expose a world where magic shaped politics, religion, life, and death. Beneath the blazing sun of the ancient Nile Valley, where golden sands met the life-giving river, the people of Kemet lived in a world where the sacred and the everyday were woven into one. For them, magic was not a superstition whispered in fear. It was a law of nature, as real as the flood of the Nile or the rising of the morning star. They called it Heka, and Heka was no mere human invention. It was older than mankind, older even than the gods themselves, for the Egyptians believed the gods had brought the world into being through its power. It was the divine force that shaped creation, the invisible thread binding heaven, earth, and the underworld. Without Heka, the sun would not rise, the crops would not grow, and the cosmic order, Ma'at, would collapse into chaos. Unlike the modern image of witchcraft, often shrouded in secrecy and mistrust, Heka was embraced at the very heart of Egyptian society. It was not the province of outcasts or heretics. It was the very foundation of their religion, their governance, their medicine, and their understanding of the universe. In Egypt, magic and religion were not separate paths. They were one and the same. Every prayer was a spell. Every ritual was an act of magic. Every carving on a temple wall was a binding of power into stone. The priests were not merely servants of the gods. They were trained wielders of Heka, entrusted with keeping the world in balance. And at the top stood the pharaoh, not just a king, but the living embodiment of divine authority, the chief magician of the two lands. The difference between Heka and our modern notion of witchcraft is profound. Today, witchcraft is often thought of as rebellious, hidden, something performed beyond the reach of sanctioned power. But to the Egyptians, Heka was sanctioned power, a birthright granted by the Creator God Himself. It was taught, practiced, and preserved within the temples, its secrets passed down through generations in sacred texts and spoken incantations. Here, to cast a spell was not to defy the divine, but to act in harmony with it. To wear an amulet was not an act of superstition, but a declaration of faith. And in this world, where every shadow had meaning, every symbol had life, and every word had weight, magic was as essential as breath itself. To understand Heka, you must strip away everything you think you know about magic. This was not sleight of hand, not the muttered charms of a village sorcerer. In the eyes of the ancient Egyptians, Heka was woven into the very fabric of existence. It was not just a practice, it was a god. The god Heka was not imagined as some trickster spirit or wandering sorcerer, but as the raw personification of magic itself, the divine energy that made creation possible. In their sacred texts, the Egyptians spoke of a time before time, when there was only the dark waters of chaos. Out of that darkness, the Creator God brought forth the world, but He did not do it alone. He spoke of a companion older than the sun, older than the sky, older even than the gods themselves. That companion was Heka. Heka was the power that gave the Creator God his voice, the strength that allowed his words to take form. Without Heka, the gods could not move, speak, or act. Without Heka, there would be no life, no order, no universe at all. It was the first power, the eternal spark behind all that is. This belief transformed the way Egyptians saw magic. To them, it was not some dangerous force to be feared. It was the divine current that ran through every ritual, every healing, every offering to the gods. Every priest who raised his hands in worship, every physician who mixed herbs for a cure, every magician who whispered an incantation under the moonlight, all of them were, in truth, servants of Heka. They were not borrowing magic from some forbidden source. They were fulfilling a sacred duty, channeling the same force that once birthed the cosmos. To serve Heka was to serve the very heartbeat of creation. In the sands of ancient Egypt, magic was not reserved for temples or royal courts. It flowed through the streets, the homes, the lives of every man, woman, and child. It was there in the carved amulet hanging around a newborn's neck, a tiny charm in the shape of the Eye of Horus, warding off the evil eye. It was in the small clay figurine buried beneath a doorway to keep wandering spirits at bay. It was in the whispered prayers over bread and beer, spoken not just for nourishment, but for protection and blessing. To the Egyptians, the unseen world was as real as the physical one, and just as full of danger. Illness, misfortune, and tragedy were not random events. They were the work of hostile forces, angry spirits, venomous creatures, or even the malice of another person. The answer? Heka. Always Heka. Mothers would recite protective spells over their children before sleep, invoking deities like Taweret, the hippopotamus goddess of childbirth, to guard them through the night. Travelers set out with charms sewn into their clothing, calling on the falcon god Horus to watch their path. Farmers scattered magical formulas over their fields to keep away pests, disease, and the wrath of the unpredictable Nile. Even the great and powerful depended on these everyday magics. Pharaohs commissioned vast protective rituals to shield them from curses and assassination. Soldiers carried amulets into battle, believing they could turn aside arrows and blades. It was a society where magic was not superstition, it was survival. And every person, no matter how humble, played their part in maintaining the balance between the mortal and the divine. In ancient Egypt, you didn't just live your life, you lived it enchanted. In ancient Egypt, magic was not merely a private matter of charms and household rituals, it was the lifeblood of the state itself. The same Heka that protected children and guided travelers also coursed through the royal court, where pharaohs relied on it to secure their divine rule. At the heart of every palace, royal magicians and court sorcerers wielded power as formidable as any army. Their role was not ceremonial alone. They were the guardians of the throne, the keepers of sacred knowledge, and the first line of defense against enemies, seen and unseen. Magic in statecraft was both protective and aggressive. Priests and magicians cast curses against rival nations, whispered incantations to weaken rebellious factions, and employed charms to safeguard soldiers on the battlefield. Every army marched not only under banners and weapons, but under the unseen shield of spells that sought to turn misfortune aside and bring victory. Even the most sacred ceremonies of the state, Coronations, religious festivals, and diplomatic exchanges were steeped in magic. Rituals would purify the pharaoh, invoke the blessings of the gods, and ensure the cosmic order, Ma'at, remained unbroken. Diplomats and envoys sometimes carried amulets and spells to protect them on dangerous journeys, proving that no aspect of governance escaped the reach of Heka. Thus, magic in Egypt was universal, present in the humble home, the bustling marketplace, the fields of farmers, and the highest echelons of power. From the smallest charm to the grandest royal ritual, Heka was not just an art or science. It was the invisible current that held the entire civilization together. Thus, magic in Egypt was universal, present in the humble home, the bustling marketplace, the fields of farmers, and the highest echelons of power. From the smallest charm to the grandest royal ritual, Heka was not just an art or science. It was the invisible current that held the entire civilization together. And at the heart of this current stood the priests, the highest magicians of the land. They were more than spiritual guides. They were the ultimate masters of Heka, entrusted with channeling the divine forces that maintained both cosmic and earthly order. Within the sanctified walls of temples, hidden from the eyes of ordinary citizens, secret rituals unfolded that invoked the greatest deities of the Egyptian pantheon: Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing; Isis, the queen of protection and healing; and Sekhmet, the fierce warrior goddess whose power could both destroy and defend. Every ritual was a precise dance of intention and symbolism. Through scrying, the priests glimpsed visions of the unseen. Through carefully spoken incantations, they called upon the gods to heal, protect, or judge. And through ceremonial magic, they ensured that Ma'at, the sacred balance of the universe, remained unbroken. Every gesture, every chant, every meticulously arranged object was charged with power, a conduit between the mortal world and the divine. The priests' influence reached every corner of Egyptian life. They advised pharaohs, protected the cities, and guided the people in their daily encounters with the supernatural. From whispered temple rites to the protection of kings and commoners alike, they were the living embodiment of Heka, the invisible force that gave Egypt its enduring magic and unshakable order. The power of Heka did not end at the temple walls or with the pharaoh's court. It flowed into every aspect of life, none more vital than the art of healing. In ancient Egypt, medicine and magic were inseparable. Physicians were not only trained in the properties of herbs and remedies, but also in the sacred words and rituals that could summon divine protection against illness. Disease was not seen as random. It was caused by restless spirits, angry gods, or malevolent forces. To heal, one had to address both the body and the unseen world. Spells were recited to banish disease-causing spirits, while carefully prepared potions and poultices worked alongside the spoken charms to restore balance. A physician might grind willow bark for pain, mix honey for wounds, and simultaneously invoke Thoth or Isis to guide the healing power of the remedy. Herbs, roots, and minerals were never just ingredients. They were conduits of divine energy, activated by the magician's words, gestures, and ritual timing. The same hand that prepared the medicine might also draw protective symbols, recite incantations, and perform subtle gestures to reinforce the magic. Every healing was a ceremony, every cure a collaboration between human skill and sacred power. Through these practices, the Egyptians demonstrated a profound understanding. that true wellness required harmony of body, mind, and spirit. In every home, in every temple, and at every bedside, Heka wove its way into the act of healing, a force that could protect, restore, and even transform life itself. But magic in ancient Egypt was a double-edged force. Just as it could heal, protect, and bless, it could also curse, punish, and exact vengeance. The same sacred energy that restored life could be harnessed to harm those who threatened the balance of Ma'at or the well-being of an individual or state. One of the most vivid expressions of this power was found in the execration texts. On simple pieces of pottery or figurines, Egyptians would inscribe the names of enemies, rivals, rebellious officials, or foreign invaders, and then smash these objects, believing that the destruction of the symbol would translate into the destruction of the foe. Each broken shard became a conduit for divine retribution, a tangible link between intention and cosmic justice. Funerary curses were another striking example. Tombs, the eternal resting places of pharaohs and nobles, were protected not only by guardians and walls, but by spells etched into stone and painted on walls. These curses promised dire consequences to anyone who dared disturb the sacred chambers, ensuring that, even in death, the power of Heka guarded the legacy of the deceased. And the myths themselves were filled with stories of magical revenge. Gods and mortals alike wielded spells to punish betrayal, theft, or hubris. From the wrath of Sekhmet unleashed upon those who defied the gods, to clever tricksters who turned curses back upon their enemies, these tales carried a warning. Magic was not to be taken lightly, and the unseen world could be as relentless as it was mysterious. In Egypt, magic was a thread that connected life, death, and justice, a force both protective and fearsome, always reminding humanity of the power that flowed unseen yet ever present throughout their civilization. And while curses could protect the living and punish the wicked, the Egyptians' deepest devotion to Heka was often directed toward the journey after death. Central to this was the Book of the Dead, a compendium of spells and incantations designed to guide the soul safely through the treacherous realms of the afterlife. Every spell was a lifeline, a precise instruction for navigating the unseen. The most iconic of these rituals was the weighing of the heart, where the soul's deeds were measured against the feather of Ma'at, the eternal symbol of truth and balance. Should the heart falter, demons awaited to drag the spirit into oblivion. Yet through the power of carefully written spells, amulets, and prayers, the deceased could be protected and their journey secured. Tomb inscriptions, painted and carved with divine precision, were more than decoration. They served as magical wards, binding protective forces around the resting place, ensuring that neither robbers nor restless spirits could desecrate the sacred resting ground. Gods, protective symbols, and incantations were interwoven into the architecture itself, transforming each tomb into a fortress of supernatural security. Through funerary magic, the Egyptians revealed a profound understanding. Death was not the end, but a continuation of the cosmic order, one that required guidance, protection, and the relentless presence of Heka. In life, it healed and protected. In death, it ensured that the soul could traverse the unknown and find eternal balance. Magic was, in every sense, the invisible thread connecting the living, the dead, and the divine. Beyond tombs and spells, the stories of individual magicians brought Heka to life weaving myth, history, and human imagination into unforgettable tales. Among them was Dedi, a magician immortalized in the Westcar Papyrus, famed for his astonishing ability to reattach a severed head, a feat that blurred the line between mortal skill and divine power. Such acts were not mere trickery. They embodied the Egyptians' belief that magic could manipulate life itself, bending reality to the will of those trained in its arts. Then there was Isis, revered as the greatest sorceress of all. Her cunning and mastery of Heka were legendary, so profound that she once outwitted Ra, the sun god, extracting his secret name to gain unparalleled power. Through her, magic became not just a tool, but a force of intelligence, strategy, and protection, showing that the divine itself could be engaged and even challenged through skillful sorcery. Even pharaohs, the earthly embodiments of godhood, were not immune to the influence of powerful magicians. Tales tell of kings who both feared and respected these masters of the unseen, sometimes rewarding them for their service, sometimes punishing them for overstepping mortal boundaries. In every account, the message was clear. Heka was a force to be revered, a power that could elevate, protect, or destroy, depending on the wisdom and intent of its wielder. In the world of ancient Egypt, magic was alive in the myths, in the hands of the magicians, and in the hearts of those who understood its boundless potential. It was a force that shaped society, protected the divine order, and inspired awe, a testament to a civilization where the miraculous and the mystical were inseparable from daily life. Magic in Egypt, though deeply rooted in its own traditions, did not exist in isolation. Across deserts, rivers, and trade routes, ideas, rituals, and divine knowledge traveled alongside merchants, diplomats, and travelers. Egypt's magicians absorbed and adapted these foreign influences, creating a dynamic tapestry of power that was at once uniquely Egyptian and globally connected. Magical knowledge flowed between Egypt and neighboring civilizations, Nubia to the south, Mesopotamia to the east, and even distant Greece. Priests and magicians exchanged techniques, amulets, and spells, learning from one another while preserving the sacred core of Heka. This cross-cultural dialogue enriched Egyptian magic, introducing new ritual forms, mystical symbols, and protective charms that seamlessly integrated into their own practices. Foreign gods and spiritual concepts were often woven into Egyptian beliefs. Deities like Bes, or foreign spirits, could be invoked alongside Thoth or Isis, expanding the pantheon of protection and enhancing the potency of spells. Likewise, rituals borrowed from other lands were adapted to fit the cosmic order of Ma'at, ensuring that even outside influences served the balance of the universe rather than destabilizing it. Through this exchange, Egypt became both a guardian and a laboratory of magical knowledge, a civilization where the currents of power, divinity, and human ingenuity converged, continually evolving while remaining tethered to the timeless force of Heka. Yet even the enduring power of Heka could not remain untouched by the sweeping tides of history. As Roman legions marched through the Nile Valley and Christianity spread its doctrines, the once unquestioned authority of Egyptian magic began to wane. Temples lost their influence, priestly rituals were forbidden or suppressed, and the sacred knowledge that had guided pharaohs, priests, and common folk alike faced a slow, inevitable decline. Still, the essence of Egyptian magic refused to vanish entirely. Symbols, spells, and arcane practices were preserved in secret, whispered in hidden chambers, or carried along trade and scholarly networks to distant lands. The Ankh, the Eye of Horus, and countless protective charms survived as enduring icons, their meanings adapted but never fully erased. Scrolls and fragments of the Book of the Dead inspired later mystics and alchemists, seeding the roots of what would become modern occult practices. Even in a transformed world, the invisible currents of Heka continued to flow. Ancient rituals, adapted and repurposed, found their way into the grimoires of medieval Europe, the mystical studies of Renaissance scholars, and the digital covens of the modern era. Egyptian magic, though cloaked in new forms and languages, endured as a testament to a civilization that had mastered the delicate dance between the seen and the unseen, the mortal and the divine. In the end, Heka was more than spells or rituals. It was a philosophy, a worldview, and a legacy. One that whispers to us even today, reminding humanity of the eternal power of magic, imagination, and the mysteries that lie just beyond our perception. Though the grand temples of Egypt now lie in silent sands, the spirit of Heka continues to resonate across the world. The magic of the pharaohs did not vanish, it evolved, finding new life in modern occult traditions, inspiring countless books, films, and the imaginations of millions who seek the mysteries of the past. Ancient symbols, the ever-watchful Eye of Horus, the eternal Ankh, and the resilient scarab continue to appear in art, jewelry, and even pop culture, carrying with them the power, protection, and profound symbolism they held thousands of years ago. Egyptian magic also seeps into modern myth and conspiracy, captivating minds with the idea that hidden knowledge, secret powers, and sacred rituals of the past might still influence the world today. The legacy of Heka reminds us that magic is not merely superstition. It is a reflection of humanity's eternal desire to connect with forces beyond understanding, to influence fate, and to preserve a sense of wonder in an ever-changing world. In the end, the story of Egyptian witchcraft is more than a chronicle of spells and rituals. It is the story of a civilization that saw the universe as alive, filled with unseen currents, and capable of transformation through knowledge, will, and devotion. The legacy of Heka endures, a timeless bridge between the mortal and the divine, the known and the mysterious, whispering across millennia that magic, in all its forms, is the eternal heartbeat of human imagination and belief.